All right, there we go, gentlemen. All right, folks, welcome back to another episode of Odyssey Life. I'm Bernie. This is the Odyssey Life Workshop, and I am super excited that you stopped by today. We've got an action-packed episode for you today. We're going to be tearing down the bottom end of our Fl250 engine that we started on a few weeks ago. We're also going to do a comprehensive transmission rebuild, bearings, seals. Joe's got an envelope for us that's labeled transmission parts. We're going to be popping that open and see what that all entails. Also, we are going to be revealing the color choice and theme of our Fl250 giveaway. That's right, guys. I decided we haven't had an Fl250 episode since we got all the parts back, so I figured, why not? Let's give you guys a look at what you're going to be winning. It's only fair, right? I shouldn't sit on it. So, yeah, guys, we're going to go ahead. We're going to reveal the theme and the color choice for that. Engine teardown, transmission build. You can't ask for a better way to start back at the Odyssey Life Garage, guys. So, yeah, if you're excited about this video, go ahead, leave a comment, leave a like. Don't forget to subscribe. Guys, let's get to work. All right, folks, just to jump right into the action, we're going to start by taking off this stock Fl250 Salisbury clutch. I did go ahead and pull off the 14 millimeter clutch bolt. If you can see that, I went ahead, pulled that out. So before we get to actually using our stock Fl250 clutch puller, we have a safety plate, I'm going to call it, along the outside here with there's 3 tabs that are bent over to keep these nuts from coming loose, and then it looks like there's a snap ring. All this to keep this clutch from coming off at high RPM. So we're going to go ahead, let's use the hammer. There's these little tabs right here at the corner of these bolts. Let's use this screwdriver and hammer to tap those out of the way. Alright, now that our tabs are out of the way, these 3 bolts are actually standard. They are a 3/8. So we're going to go ahead, use our 1/4 inch drive, 3/8 inch ratchet, and we're going to go ahead and remove these 3 bolts. Now that we got our plate out, there's 3 bolts and 3 washers. I don't know if you can see that or not, but I just dropped them. So we're going to go ahead and set these to the side. And next is this snap ring right here. Now I do not have a snap ring puller. We're going to go ahead, pop this snap ring out. There we go. I've got it started. There we go. One undamaged snap ring. And it appears that now we're ready to remove our stock Salisbury clutch. So we're going to go ahead. I've already sprayed some blaster and WD-40 in here. So we're going to go ahead, thread this in until it comes into contact with the crankshaft. Use your 32 millimeter impact socket and give her some ooga doogas. Go, guys. One stock Salisbury clutch. The next step is to remove the engine from this engine cradle so then we can split the case. So let's go ahead. The engine cradle is held, or this engine is held on the engine cradle by 2 14 millimeter bolts and nuts. So you need a 14 millimeter wrench as well as a 14 millimeter socket, or in this case we have an impact. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to remove the one 14 millimeter bolt up top and the one 14 millimeter bolt at the bottom. Let's do this. Alright, and all we want to do is just pull these studs out we'll set these right over here so we can add them to their own bag to be labeled and put in a big bag so we don't lose anything. So now we're gonna go ahead, pick this little guy up. Pick this little guy up. There we go. Look at that. Just like when my daughter was born, I could hold her in one hand. There we go. Such a small engine. And here's our engine cradle, looking good. This will be taken to work. It'll be powder coated and cleaned and look brand new when we're done. So let's get to the engine. So I was on the phone with Joe getting all the last minute details on what I needed to know as far as the little tips and tricks to getting this case apart. He said that it was very important to take a soft wire brush and go around this side of the crankshaft right up against the crank seal. Go right in there and wire brush that out and try to get as much of that lip out of there as possible, because if not, you won't be able to get these cases apart. I have a soft wire brush right here. I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna stick that in here like that, and I'm gonna go all the way around till this is clean, and then we're gonna crack our case. Let's go ahead and finish going around this crankshaft so we can remove that lip so we can split our cases. So we're gonna go ahead, use our impact with a 10mm socket, and we're gonna remove 7 10mm case bolts, and then we're going to split this case. We are going to go ahead and clean this whole thing up. We're going to put the crank, actually we're going to put both cases and the crank into our vat of 2-stroke gasoline and oil so we can make sure that our crank doesn't get corroded, flash rusted. And number 2, we're going to use that to, we're going to get ourselves some kitchen gloves. We're going to scrub everything up in there, get all the grease and grime, even though this engine is pretty clean. But okay, let's take our nut and screw it back down inside, so we can go ahead and tap the end of this crankshaft without tapping the end of the crankshaft. You know what I mean? I don't want to mar the end of the crankshaft. I would rather hit the end of this bolt instead. So we're going to go ahead, take our fingers, pick up on this case and tap this. There we go, gentlemen. Remove our bolt and then we can pull this case off. Just like I said, I was going to grab some 2x4s. I've got 8 of them stacked up, and then I have them right here underneath, I guess we're gonna call them ears of the stator side case. We're not supporting our crankshaft in any way. If you look underneath, our crankshaft is dangling because we're gonna take this block, lay it on top here, maybe like this, and we're going to use our bigger ball peen hammer and go ahead and tap the side of this crank so we can get the crank to fall out without having to hold it. So let's go ahead, tap this crank out. Alright, there we go, gentlemen. Now let me get my gloves on. We're going to grab that bucket and we're going to drop that whole assembly right in our bucket full of gasoline and oil. We're going to go ahead, we're going to take our crank, connecting rod and all. We're going to take it over to our big bucket full of gasoline. We're going to drop this in there and submerge it. There we go. The underside of our cases, we have new bearings. You can see those. Joe has told me a secret on how to get these bearings out in our stove, but first we want to clean them up and get rid of all the oil and everything else. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to soak these in the gasoline now as well, and we'll tend to the bearings in a little bit. We've got both case halves and the crank in our oil and gasoline. We're going to let them soak, let that gasket material soften up, come loose from the sealing surfaces before we get in there with a wire brush and start scrubbing everything up. Those cases are going to be cleaned, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to dress them up and make them look pretty to go with the rest of the top end that we have that's already been shipped out. I'm going to tell you all about that at the end of the video. Let's get this transmission up on the bench and we'll get that started. So what you're looking at here is the whole rear end minus the hubs. We didn't deal with the rear end when we took the hubs off. I wanted to show you before we just jump to the transmission. You're able to remove this whole shaft, slides that way right out. We're going to go ahead, we're going to pull this axle right out of the transmission so we can go ahead and put some 2x4s on our bench, flip this up so we can pop this cover off and we can get in there and check out our bearings and everything else. Alright, it was that simple. It just slides right out. I'm going to go ahead and put our crown nut back on, set our axle and our brake assembly to the side, so we'll definitely be coming back to this. Okay, first I want to explain something. Before you take your transmission and pull that shaft out, you want to go ahead and make sure that your transmission is drained of oil. But before we tear into this, I'm going to take this Scotch Brite pad, this one right here, and I'm going to go ahead, there's some mud and debris over here on this side. I'm going to go ahead, clean that up because I don't want any of that falling inside of our transmission. So is what Joe said was that he said this was like a TV dinner. He said if you put it clutch side down and you pop this cover off, he said when you pull this cover up, aside from whatever's on this side of the cover, which I think there's a bearing on this side, but the majority of your transmission parts, he said, will be right there. Nothing will fall out. That's why I stacked up these 2x4s. If you count, there's 5 of them here, and I put 2 in the front and 2 in the back. And the reason I did that is because at 5 2x4s, it's resting on the spring. So we want to go ahead and put these 2x4s under here just to give it something so it's not rocking back and forth. So when we do pop open the lid to our TV dinner, our peas and veggies don't fall on the floor. But as I said previous, or maybe I didn't, these appear to be 12mm bolts. So let me go ahead and get a 12mm socket on our impact and we'll remove 9 12mm bolts. Alright, and we have a bracket that goes on the underside that holds this bracket on. We're going to go ahead and we're just going to set that aside. Let's get these cases split. Ta-da! Alrighty, we got a seal on this side right here. Can you see that? Got a seal right there. We'll deal with that in a minute. We do have a transmission gasket right here. Joe sent that to us a while ago. So okay, so as what we have here is our transmission. Joe did send us 7 bearings. I'll put a picture right there with all the corresponding part numbers, and I think there's a couple there you can even scan with your phone. But I'll put the information in the description. So okay, is what we're looking at is our transmission. We have bearings, which they just come off real nice and easy. And the case. Joe said that this chain is a good chain. He said, and is how you can tell is when these things start getting loose, they start chewing the inside of your case. They start floating and start chewing out right here. And the inside of this case is flawless. All the housings for the bearings still have all the nice mill marks in them. Everything's good. So we have to take everything off in order to get to the bottom bearings, the needle bearings. So we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna pull everything off piece by piece. I'll have the video to watch on how to put it back together. Alright guys, so after being on the phone with Joe from Odd ATV, the problem is that Joe was in such a hurry that he thinks he put our transmission seals and oil seals and stuff into another customer's order. So I could go ahead and rip all the gears out and rip all the bearings out, but I would rather wait until we have all the parts. So I mean, not like I'm likely to forget how to put this back together, but I would still like to wait until we have all the parts, which I commend Joe for sending me as many parts as he did. It's kind of hard when you're not here to keep, to have an eye on the project, to keep track of exactly everything you need, and I don't know. He did send all the bearings, it's just the seals that were missing. So I guess on that note, we're gonna go ahead and get to revealing the color and theme of our Fl250 giveaway project, as well as who we partnered with for the Fl250 engine build. Let's get going. Alright folks, sorry about that transmission rebuild falling through. Joe did say he would get those transmission seals in the mail on Monday. Then next Fl250 video, we can go ahead, jump back on that and get that done and checked off the list. What do you think of our color scheme, guys? I was sitting at work one day and I'm like, what's the theme of our Fl250 build? And I chose this 67 Mustang GT 500. We're gonna call this the GT 250. I'm just super excited about this. We went with signal red for the valance in the back half. This is gonna represent the 2 racing stripes. There are decals, new fenders, all kinds of stuff, guys. It's only gonna look better. So super excited about that. Real quick, I did ship out the top end of our Fl250 engine to CW Race Engines, guys, out in Campbell, California. Super excited. Joe talked to Chris Wortman on the phone. They were finally able to get together. Chris was super excited to take part in the Odyssey Life Odd ATV Fl250 giveaway by really sprucing up that top end. Yeah, Chris said he's going to give us something nice for the camera. So yeah, everything's rolling along great. New color scheme, GT 250. Don't forget, next weekend, Fl350 build out at the Odyssey Life test track. Me, nephew Nick, he's bringing his KX85 Kawasaki dirt bike so we can reap the rewards of our hard work from last weekend, cutting down all those trees and getting everything out of the way. We opened up almost 3 miles of tracks, guys. So I guess until next week, I'm going to be again waiting on the postman to bring me some transmission seals and editing this video so you guys drool all over the buggy that one of you guys is going to win. Go ahead, hit that subscribe button, guys. Rules for the giveaway in the description, as well as a link to Odd ATV, our contact information, and the Odyssey Life Facebook group. Don't forget about that. Swing over there, check that out. Alright guys, until next week, I'll be here hanging out, doing the thing. See you soon.